Okay, Ron. Last parsha in Sefer Parshas, Parshas Vayechi. Again, all these parshas are mamish packed. We'll focus this week on like 5 psukim, where Yaakov Avinu gives the brachas to his children. Now, if we notice, it's a Perek Mem Tes 49, Pasuk Aleph. There are 2 psukim that describe Yaakov's intentions in giving the brachas. So Vayikra Yaakov el Banov, he calls to his children, Vayomer Hey Osfu va'agida lachem es asher yikra eschem ba'achris hayamim. So Hey Osfu, the language of gather together using asifa, let's gather together. Va'agida lachem, I will tell you, es asher yikra eschem ba'achris hayamim, what is going to happen to you in the end of days. So almost everybody learns the end of days means like Yemos HaMashiach, when Mashiach comes in the end of all of the world as we know it. Okay? Then Pasuk Beis, he kovtsu, which means to gather as well. Now we know that there's no extra word in the Torah, and there's no, every word choice is of paramount significance. So again, in Pasuk Aleph we have Hey Osvu v'agid lachem, a lashon of asifa, which means gather, assemble, the art scroll says. And now in Pasuk Beis, he kovtsu, again it means to gather yourself. So they have assemble and gather. We'll see how the Mefarshim explain the difference between Hey Asfu and He Kavtzu. But He Kavtzu, Vishimu, come and listen, Bnei Yaakov, the children of Yaakov, Vishimu El Yisrael Avichem, and listen to Yisrael, your father. We saw in last week's parsha a very important difference between Yaakov and Yisrael. In last week's parsha, when we discussed Yaakov's descent to Mitzrayim, so we pointed out that according to the Netziv, his intention was to live in Beersheva. He did not want to leave Eretz Yisrael. The Netziv's whole mahalach, his whole approach to the whole story of Yaakov and Yosef and the reunion is all about ruchnius. Yaakov, he's happy his son is alive. I'll see him before I die. It could be in 10 years' time. I'm in no rush to go down there. I'm going to Beersheva to make a parnasa. Hashem says, not so fast. You have to go down to Mitzrayim. And then he turns back into Yaakov. I mean, he was Yisrael. Then he turned back into Yaakov when he feels, to an extent, helpless, and his children have to carry him down. That's what the Netziv learned. So again, here we see this change from Yaakov to Yisrael. It was Vayikra Yaakov el Banov, then it was Vishimu Bnei Yaakov, and then Vishimu El Yisrael Avichem. So it's always significant when we see that change between Yaakov and Yisrael. Okay, so Rashi starts off quoting the Medrash that everyone, almost all the Rishonim go with, and that is, it's a bit strange. It starts off with Yaakov saying, I'm going to let you know about the end of days, what's going to happen, and then what happens? In Pasuk Gimel, Reuven, Bechori Ata, Koichi V'Reishis Oini, Yesus Eis V'Yasa Reuven, you're my firstborn, my strength. Pachas Kamayim, he goes and he, has strong words for Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, and then he has a bracha for Yehuda. So what happened to the Achros Hayamim? What happened to him being Megala, him uncovering, telling his children what's going to happen? So Rashi says, he brings the Medrash, that basically Hashem took away that Nistak Mimenu Shechina. Right? Bikesh Shagalos Zaketz. Rashi says he wanted to let them know what's going to happen at the end of days. But he stalka mimenu shchina v'hiskul amidvar macherim. And in the middle, Hashem took that ability away, and he started saying other things, brachas. So I thought a question. I don't have an answer to this. I'm just wondering, what is this? Why did Yaakov want to tell his children what's going to happen at the end of days? We'd call that today a spoiler, right? That's what we call it today. Wouldn't that detract from everything they're doing? If you know what's going to happen in the end, obviously Yaakov felt that was going to help them in some way, and Hashem said, no, you shouldn't tell them. What was the shak levatari? What was the back and forth between Yaakov and Hashem? Kind of, not really back and forth, but why did Yaakov think that telling them the end of days would be good for them? And why did Hashem say no? I haven't seen any before Hashem discuss this.
Because he knew at some point that they would be obvious in Mitzrayim, and he would say, at the end, you'll come out okay.
Right, meaning it's going to be very difficult, and if you see the light at the end of the tunnel, that'll give you the chizuk, the strength to go weiter, to persevere. And then Hashem said, no, I don't want you to tell them that. I mean, Hashem already told Yaakov in last week's parasha in Beersheva that I'm going to go down with him and come up with you. Right. And the Netziv says that Yaakov told his kids. Rav Hirsch seemed to imply that he didn't tell his kids, but let's assume that everyone agrees he told his kids. They knew that they're going to come out to be a happy ending. But to Megal, the Kates, like the Moshe Mashiach, all the way down the end, I'm not sure why Yaakov felt a need to say that. I'm not sure why Hashem necessarily didn't want them to know that. Meaning, the truth is, we just had a Gemara in Megillah on Daf Gimel that says, the Gemara says that Onkelos was Matargim, did the Targum for the Torah, and that was fine. And then Yonasan ben Uzziel did Targum for Nevi'im, and the Eretz all shook, and then he explained why he did it. And then Targum for Ksuvim he wanted to Megala, and then Hashem didn't let him. Because in Ksuvim you have Daniel, and Sefer Daniel is Kate's Mashiach. So Hashem does not want us to know when the Mashiach is going to come. That's clear from the Gemara in Megillah. So I guess that's Hashem, the same thing over here. But Yaakov felt for some reason that they should know it's important for them. Either way, in the... Yeah?
Why did Yaakov know? Or how did Yaakov know?
Hashem let Yaakov know. That's interesting. Right, that's right. That's a good point. Yeah, maybe Yaakov felt if Hashem let me know, obviously to pass it down to the future generations. So the Balaturim has a very interesting pshat over here. He says, so Yaakov says, I'm going to tell you the end of days, and then all of a sudden he gets amnesia. He doesn't remember what it is. So he says to them, maybe you guys sinned, so therefore Hashem is not letting me tell you. So they say, in all the names of the 12 Shvatim, there is no ches, there's no tes, there's no chet. There's no ches and tes. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. There's no ches and tes. God, Asher, Dan, Naphtali, Yisachar, Zvulun. God, Asher, I said already. And Binyamin, Yosef. There's no ches, there's no tes. There's no chet. Yitzchak has a ches, there's no tes. Avram means there's no tes anyway. So they say, no, we have no chet. And then Yaakov responds back, but you have no kates either. Kates is the end of days, kuf tzadik. So again, you have Yitzchak and you have Yaakov, but in the Shvatim, interestingly enough, there's no kuf and there's no tzadik. Of all the letters. Interesting, we all know that there's no, Gimel and Tes never come next to each other in the Torah. They never come together. Get is the ultimate period, is that separation. So the Gimel Tes never, so there is something to that. But here we see the Balaturim, that the letters that are not present in the Shvatim's names have a lot of significance. Okay, so that's what happened. So Yaakov is about to tell him the Kates, the Achros Hayam, and then he changes his mind, or his mind is changed, and then he goes on to give the brachas. Okay, so the Netziv, I didn't get a chance this week to print a chart. We'll have to do it Ba'al Peh. I have a little handwritten chart for myself, but it's illegible, so it wouldn't help to photocopy that. I could have been a doctor, I guess they say. Okay, fine. So the Netziv and Rav Hirsch, they all focus on what's Asifa and what's Kibbutz. But before that, the Kliyakar says that Asifa means, and Asifa is when I call people in to like a secret place to talk to them. Meaning we're all outside. Hey, guys, come inside. I want to tell you something. So it's like a kind of like a secret behind closed doors type of discussion. That's what he thought he's going to be telling them the case. But once it was Nistam, once he couldn't do that, then he switches to the lashon of kibbutz, which means gathering dispersed entities. So everyone just come and gather, but no longer in an inner chamber. It's more b'chutz. And the reason in Pasuk Beis why it switches from Yaakov to Yisrael. But so his first plan is according to Kliyakar, come in, gather inside. I'll tell you the Achros Yamim. That doesn't happen. So we kavtzu, but at least come close. Shimu b'nei Yaakov. Yaakov, it refers to the divrei kivushin. There are some of the shvatim, the first three primarily, that he's going to be very, very strong with sharp words for them. This is their bracha. This is a bracha. And he gives them, we'll see the first three, Bez Hashem, sharp words. That's Yaakov. Yaakov was the one with sharp words. Vishimu el Yisrael avichem, referring to the other Shvatim, primarily Yehuda, where Yaakov does disclose some future events, not the Kate's Mashiach, not when the Mashiach is going to come, but he does tell them what's going to happen down the line. For example, the kings will always come from Yehuda. They will never cease to come from Yehuda. There are certain things he says. That's Yisrael. Yisrael is the Bechina, the concept of Nevuah, of the prophet, Yaakov. But Yaakov means the Divrei Kivushim, the hard words. So that's how he explains Yaakov and Yisrael. That's the Kli Yaakov. The Netziv has a different pshat. The Netziv says that, what was it?
Don't we see that as the opposite, like when they're at Sinai, it says, Tomer on the base Yaakov, or Tagit Yisrael, or something like that?
Right, it says base Yaakov. So there was,
Yaakov was like the soft version, and then Yisrael was like the harsh one.
Right. Unless it's base and b'nei. I wonder if that's the distinction there. But still, it's not for no reason. If you see what they say there, why it's base Yaakov and b'nei Yisrael. Why isn't it base Yisrael and b'nei Yaakov?
We say he's speaking to the women, so therefore
It wasn't kosher kigidim. He gave them the easier shmuz.
It's very like the reverse, right?
Yeah. So you have to see why that is. I mean, Beis Yaakov would mean Beis means the women, but why Yaakov? According to the Kli Yakar, see what he says over there. It's an excellent point. So the Netziv has a similar idea to Kli Yakar. Hey Osfu, he says, means asifas anoshim miyuchadim l'tzarich inyan, v'lo kibbutz klali, which means you pull together the leaders of the nation to have a specific discussion about something, not a kibbutz klali. So he brings all the brothers together. He actually holds that acharis hayomim does not refer to Kates Mashiach. He brings a number of examples where it just means the end of a certain period of history. For example, he brings by Bilam, it's like that. He says acharis hayomim, it didn't mean the end of days. It's not referring to Moshe Mashiach. Shekvar Baltov and Akra Uma Moav Min Ha'olam. Moav is not there anymore. It's the end of the specific time period that the one who's speaking is in that. So he's basically disagreeing with the Medrash. The Medrash says it's the Moshe Mashiach, and the Tzif says no. Achros Yamim means just the end of this period. Then on Hikovtzu, what's kibbutz? So he says, kibbutz mashma klal hamoin uma Yisraelis, the entire Jewish nation. Basically, Yaakov is going to tell the 12 tribes what he has, the important messages to tell them and how they should run their lives. And then he expects them to call a national meeting of everyone to tell them what's going on. That is how the Netziv understands what's going on. And he says, V'shimu el Yisrael avichem, listen to Yisrael, your father. He says, there's two reasons you have to listen to me. Number one, I'm Yisrael, which means I have the nevuah. And number two, I'm your father, which means I have a right to command you what to do. So those are the two reasons, the two rights that he has to say what he's going to say. That is how the Netziv understands it. Very similar to the Kli Yakar. The Rav Hirsch has an unbelievable observation, as usual, where he says like this. He says, what does Hey Osfu mean? Hey Osfu means to gather different things. Because it can't be. Because we read in the end of Parshas Ba'alois, when Miriam got the tsaras, right? Miriam got the leprosy, the pasuk says that Klal Yisrael waited for her. That was a midah k'neged midah. She waited for Moshe Rabbeinu when he was in the teva. We wait for her. So the pasuk says, Ad Hey Osef Miriam. What does that mean?
So they gathered Miriam?
So you can learn, maybe it's till she was gathered. Ad Hey Osef Miriam. Says Rav Hirsch, so Asifa can't be by definition bringing a number of parts together. Because Ad Hey Osef Miriam is his big raya, that's not the case. He says Osef rather means to remove something from an alien sphere. So Miriam was in, not excommunication, she was out of the machane, out of the camp. So let's wait until she's brought back into the camp. Asifa is bringing things from an alien place where they should not be and bring them into the right place. Says Yaakov Avinu to his sons, detach yourselves from everything alien and foreign and unite in your common goal. Asifa is take away your own personal thoughts and now focus on the common good. Be absorbed by what is common to you, to all of you. Stand all of you on common ground. That's Hey Asfu. The first thing Yaakov is telling his children is, you guys are all very different. As we'll see in the brachas, you all have different character traits, different skill sets. What I want of you is to take all your individuality, don't get rid of it, but use it towards the common good. That's asifa. Kibbutz, he says, on the other hand, refers to the physical assembly of several components. So l'kabetz means to gather pieces together. L'asoif means to take even oneself from a foreign place where he shouldn't be into a place he should be. Says Rav Hirsch, the Netziv is saying two things to his children. These are his last words. Different though you are from one another, devote yourselves with the very diversity to one spirit that unites you. Then I will reveal to you what will befall you in the end of days. Only when you will be imbued by one spirit will the Achros Yamim come. So he's not saying, I'm going to tell you, it's not a prophetic thing, hey, you want to know what's going to happen to you in 6,000 years? That's not what he was saying. If you can unite with your diversity, this is the challenge, right? Because either we are diverse to the extent that we don't talk to each other, and there's no crossover, or we try to become one and be exactly the same. That's the two mistakes that people make again and again. Either there's machloikis and there's pirud, or let's just be one. Let's dress the same way. Let's think the same way. Let's eat the same hashgachas. Let's keep the same halachas. Everything should be the same. But that's not Judaism. Yiddishkeit is we're diverse, but we have one common goal. Like, for example, everyone around the circle pointing towards the center. So I'm pointing north and you're pointing south. But we're both pointing to the middle, with Hashem in the middle. That's what Yaakov is telling his children, that as different as you are, and you should be different, but have one goal and have a unified spirit, a unified reality. That is that's his first piece of advice. He kovtu in Pasuk Beis, what's his gathering together? He says, Bnei Yaakov, Jewish people, are a powerless minority. We are, right? Powerless minority. The only way that we can have strength is if we're unified. Our strength lies in our unity. So we should gather together to be a physical force. So to have the complete abilities of Klal Yisrael on a spiritual level, that comes when we have a unified mission. And to be able to deal with the non-Jews in this world, we have to be physically unified together. That's the He'osvu and Hikovtzu. That's how Rav Hirsch explains it.
If they have the unity, and then the gates can be revealed to them. So they said that we are unified. Shema Yisrael, Shema Yisrael, right? We're together, we're unified, but it's still hidden from them, right?
So I guess the way Rav Hirsch, it sounds like he's learning, is that he's not telling them that the game's not over yet. Meaning, maybe right now you're unified, but he wanted to see them down the line be unified. I mean, when you act as a Bnei Yaakov, which you're just beginning to act as now, the nation is just forming now, in a unified manner, you will hear the Achros Yom. I'm not come to tell you that now, says Yaakov, but if you keep acting like this, like in a unified manner, then that will come. But says Rav Hirsch, what's Shimu Bnei Yaakov? What's the Lashon? V'shimu Bnei Yaakov, v'shimu el Yisrael avichem. Says Rav Hirsch, okay, Shema is a spiritual tzama. So Shema means someone who's thirsty for ruchnius. Says Yaakov, when the thirst for spiritual values awakens within you, thirst only for the traditions of your father Yisrael, and then you will be successful. So combine yourself with your diversity into one mission, be physically unified, and then have the shmiya, have the thirst for spiritual, for halacha, for the Torah, and then you'll achieve your mission. That is what he's telling his children on his deathbed. That's what Yaakov says. Okay, that's the general message. Now we'll see a little bit Ruvain, Shimon, and Levi. Those are the very, very strong words that Yaakov has for them. So Pasuk Gimel. Reuven b'chori ata, you are my firstborn. Koichi, you are my strength. V'reishis oini, yeses eis v'yeser os. So how do they translate here? Reuven, you are my firstborn, my strength, my inner vigor. Reishis oini is my inner vigor. Yeses eis v'yeser os, foremost in rank and foremost in power. Right? So far, so good. Right? In other words, he's telling him, these are nothing, these attributes that he is discussing about Reuven didn't do anything to earn them. He's just saying, this is your natural skill set. Yaakov is setting up, this is your potential. And now comes the punch, so to speak. Pachas kamayim al toisar, ki alisa al mishke ve'avicha oz chilalta yitzui Allah. A very hard passage to translate. The beginning is a little easier. Pachas kamayim. Rav Hirsch points out, this comes up very few times in Tanakh, the word pachas. Something like water. The art school is already using Rashi's mahalach. Al toisar, you cannot be foremost. Ki alisa al mishke avicha, because you mounted your father's bed. Az chilalta yitzui Allah. Then you desecrated him who ascends my couch. HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So hard to understand. L'chayra, and almost everyone learned this is referring to that incident where Rachel died. Yaakov took his bed and put it into Bilhah's tent. That was Rachel's instead of Leah. Reuven was very upset. The Parshas and the Psukim indicate one thing he did. Mefarshim say he didn't do that. He did something else. He took his bed out, or he made it that Yaakov couldn't be with Bilhah, and that was considered to be an Aveira, and then he did Tshuva. But the Tshuva didn't work for him to retain his position. He was supposed to be the Kohen and the king. Reuven should have had everything.
Yeah, and also blew when it came to Yosef.
That's right. That's another time where he did. We'll see that fits into Rav Hirsch's malach. Rav Hirsch doesn't reference that, but I think it's very negated to Rav Hirsch. Says the Netziv, there are two qualities, unique qualities of water, right? One is that water gushes out much faster than other drinks. For example, in the Beis HaMikdash on Sukkot, they had a ceremony with wine and water. They poured the wine and water in the Mizbeach. Now, the hole for the wine, it would pour on the corner there, and it would go down to the Shittim. The hole for the wine was bigger than the water, because they wanted them to finish at the same time. It was the same volume of water and wine, but wine is thicker. So they made the hole bigger for wine, so it should finish the same time. So water gushes forth the most. And also, that's Pachas Kamayim, Al Toisar, from Lashon Yeser, meaning nothing is left over. If you take a cup of water like this, eventually come back in an hour or so, it'll be dry. If you take a cup of wine or oil or obviously honey or even juice, right, things will be left. Water empties out completely. Nothing is left. Meaning, if you wait, it'll all empty out. That's what the Netziv says. These two characteristics of water, that's what Yaakov is pointing out. Explains the Netziv, Pachas Kamayim, that you don't sit there calm and think about what's going to be. You act impulsively. But not only that, it says in Netziv, you know what Reuven did? Reuven did not want Yaakov to be with Bilhah back then. So he took his bed into the tent, and he slept there the whole night. Because if he was there, Yaakov couldn't be with Bilhah. Says the Netziv, that's not just like an impulsive thing you do, like you do in a Aveira, like whatever it is, you eat the thing you shouldn't eat, or you hit the person, or the person has a Yetzer Hara and he does something. This, for like 8 hours, non-stop, he's doing it. So not only are you impulsive, Reuven, but when you have something in mind, nothing is going to stop you over an extended period of time. Says the Netziv, Pachas Kamayim Avad Yeses Eishu HaKavod. We can't give you a covered position because you just react without thinking about what's going to be the consequences. And because Mishum Al Toiser, because when he's convinced of something, nothing can change his mind for an extended period of time. Avad Yeser Oz B'Hanhagas HaMelucha. You cannot be a king. Says the Netziv, the Melech Alo Lishgois V'Lachtoi. A king is prone to make mistakes. A leader makes mistakes. And if he is arrogant, and he's not going to learn from anyone else, he's going to ruin the country. So since you're impatient, you just act like Pachas Kamayim. You can't have covered. But the bigger issue is that you don't even have regret. You don't take anyone else's opinion into account when you are sure of what you think is right. That you can't be a king. A king has to have that humbleness where he asks his ministers, his advisors, but that passes you from Melucha, from being the king. That's how the Netziv learns. Rav Hirsch learns a little bit differently. So he says he's not sure exactly about what part of water are we comparing Reuven to. He's not sure what Pachas means, but he wants to say, based on some other pasuk, or Lashon Chazal actually, water is extremely unstable. There's an instability, it's unstable. There's instability of water, it just goes wherever. So Reuven was unstable. I mean, he wasn't strong in his convictions. And you can see that also with Yosef. He wasn't strong. He said his opinion and he didn't take him back. He should have taken him back. But he didn't have a conviction. And a leader has to have that conviction. Al Toyser says, the Rav Hirsch, that means the instability of your character deprives you of the right to privilege. Toyser from Lashon Yasser, which means more, which means privilege. Your instability deprives you from privilege. So it's similar to the Netziv. But the Netziv is taking it a step further and saying it's not just instability, it's your confidence, your overconfidence, and your decision-making process.
Sounds like the exact opposite, actually. Here he doesn't have the confidence in his convictions.
You're right.
But the Netziv says, no, he's too confident in his convictions. He doesn't consider any other opinions.
No, you're right. It's mamash faket. I mean, the Netziv is saying you act very quickly, and you don't question yourself. Meaning you're too sure of yourself. And Rav Hirsch is saying, punk faker, the total opposite. You're too unsure of yourself. As we know in life. We know in Judaism, Shvil Hazov, the golden mean. Right? So either he's too much this way, too much that way. They're both invalidate him for the Melucha. That's how the Rav Hirsch learns. Let's go to Shimon and Levi. We'll stay in Rav Hirsch for a second. Shimon and Levi, Achim Klei Chamos B'Cheiroi Seihem. Your brothers, right? Says Rav Hirsch, you have what it takes to be a ruler. Why? You're free of any selfish motive. They reacted to a wrong done to the least important member of the family as if it happened to themselves. Dinah wasn't from the Shiftei Kosh. She wasn't one of the Shvatim. But the reaction to her, what happened to her, it's like it happened to them. That feeling of closeness, that character trait really is what a leader has to have. But the problem is that similar to Reuven, that they just their anger took over and they went way too far. And therefore, Yaakov says, I can't be part of that. He says, Shimon and Levi have the attitude and spirit required for leadership, but their methods are reprehensible. In other words, whatever's for the greater good of the people, they do. The ends justify the means. Rav Hirsch points out that the way of the world is certain things that people do. If it's for selfish motives, you're immoral. If it's for the country's greater good, the ends justify the means. And he's saying in Judaism it's not like that. So when we go out to war, there's certain things that people do at war to get what they want, that if anyone did that in his personal life, he'd be in jail. But if you're doing it for the good of the country, it's a mitzvah.
Torture, interrogation.
That's right. If you're doing it for yourself, let's say the guy owes you money, you're torturing him, you go to jail. Right? Now, Lamaisa, if lives are at stake, with that specific example, if lives are at stake, then lives are at stake. What are we supposed to do? You can't just, But there are definitely certain reprehensible acts that people do for the greater good. It's considered to be a mitzvah, otherwise not. In Judaism, the ends don't justify the means. So Shimon and Levi were right. And it says of Hirsch, if they just would have killed Shechem and Chamor, fine, but their anger made them go overboard and they killed innocent people. And the Netziv essentially says the same thing, which is similar to, I guess, the Netziv by Reuven, that you just make a decision and then that's it, you go. With Shimon and Levi, it was more with their anger. Says the Netziv by Shimon and Levi, the way he understands Klei Chamas Mechei Reseim is that what's in their minds comes out into action with chamas, with anger. Anger is the medium that brings their thoughts into action. And he says that whenever a person gets angry, this is without exception, the person does things, he wants a certain goal, right? Someone did something wrong. An employee was sloppy. I see this in the restaurants all the time. You see, as a general klal, the restaurants that the staff stays because the owner is nice to them have the fewest kashrus problems. It's the restaurants the staff is always leaving, which is a combination of either disorganization or the owners sometimes are mean to their staff. You have to build the team. It's a team effort, right? When they're mean to the staff, they end up leaving. Why? Because when you're angry, you do things that aren't necessary. So the employee left early, right? So if you're angry at the employee, then you're going to say things that you don't need to say in order to get the person to stay to the proper time. Anger always pushes a person too far, and he goes too far, and that's the Shimon Levi. They killed out the whole city instead of just of focusing on Shechem and Chamor. So in that sense, the Netziv and Rosh are the same. But it's interesting, you compare, so according to the Netziv, everyone is acting out of impulse. Reuven in his way, and Shimon Levi in their way. According to Rav Hirsch, Reuven is the unstable one, he's not stable, and Shimon and Levi are two. Their feelings for their family is too strong that whatever they feel, any ends that they want to get to, that justifies the means. Those are the two approaches that Netziv has to Reuven and Shimon and Levi, and refers to Reuven and Shimon and Levi. And then it picks up. But for me, the interesting part for me is how exactly Yaakov understands, and again, he doesn't curse them, he curses Apam, he curses their anger. He doesn't curse the person. The Netziv says they were Kanaim, right? They were Pinchas had the same thing when he went. He killed the Nasi of Shimon, right? That was a certain Kana. Says the Netziv, it's important to have Kanaim, but only very few. That's why Yaakov says, I'm going to spread them out. Achalkim bi Yisrael. What's the words? Achalkim bi Yaakov, afitzim bi Yisrael. End of Pasuk Zayin. Says Yaakov, we need to have Shimon and Levi's in Klal Yisrael, but only few and far between. So I'm going to spread them out across the land. Because you have them in one area, that can lead to, it can be very dangerous. So I think the common theme in all this, in all the Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, it's all about, controlling oneself. Rabbi Rucham Levavitz points out in last week's Parshas by Yosef, lo yochel his apek. It got to a point where he was taken over by his emotions. And what did he do? He sent all the Egyptians out of the room. Which means even at a time where he was overcome by emotion, his seichel, his intellect, was still in control. He didn't just break down and start crying. He realized it's inappropriate for me to cry in front of the Egyptians. And their brothers would be embarrassed. Send them out. So in the most emotional state he's ever been in his life, arguably, he still was in control. And we see this Reuven and Shimon and Levi, their emotions got the better of them. Reuven, the injustice to his mother, he goes in there and he stays the whole night according to the Nitziv. Shimon and Levi, this happened to my sister. There is no boundary to their actions. And both those are illegitimate. A yid has to be cool and calculated. That's the Musar Haskell. Okay, shkoyach.